What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over what I think is the best loadout in Fortnite Zero Build for the Fortnitemares update. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below what your favorite loadout or favorite items to use have been so far with the Fortnitemares update. If you guys were unaware, not only did the Fortnitemares update add several items to the game, but recently the War Machine Hover Jets or Jetpack was recently vaulted. And I feel like that vault impacts the game more than anything else. Like, that is a very significant change, not only in how you can play, but also what the meta of the game is going to be. And I think this frees up a lot of other items to be like more viable. For your AR and shotgun, I feel like both are pretty open with the removal of the jetpack. With the AR, I think it's just going to be your choice between the Striker AR and the Striker Burst. I think both are really good, and it just comes down to personal preference and playstyle. It's kind of been like this through the entirety of the season because both of these weapons are quite good. But I know a lot of people, and myself included, preferred the fully automatic Striker AR because I felt that for how I wanted to play with the jetpack and how I wanted to play fights with the jetpack, the fully automatic Striker AR just lended itself to that playstyle really good. But with the jetpack being removed, I do feel more inclined to use the burst at times. Like, I feel like I'm at less of a disadvantage in certain fights using it than I would have been if everyone was jetpacking around. But I think I still do prefer the fully automatic Striker AR. It's just like the gap between them is smaller for me for sure with the jetpack being removed. But I just think I am so much better with the fully automatic Striker AR than I am the burst. But if you're good with the burst and you enjoy using the burst, I feel like it indirectly got a buff because the jetpack got vaulted. And then shotguns are same case. I believe the Sovereign and the Gatekeeper shotgun are just the two best shotguns in the loot pool right now. And for most of this season, I've just kind of leaned towards the Sovereign because I felt like with the jetpack fights and how they played out, the Sovereign felt better in them to me. But now with the jetpack being vaulted, fights are a lot more grounded, and that gap between the Gatekeeper and the Sovereign isn't nearly as large as it once was. I feel like at this point, between the Sovereign and the Gatekeeper for me, it's mostly just coming down to like rarity and the stage of the game that I'm in. If I'm off spawn and my choice is like a purple Sovereign or a green Gatekeeper, I'm going to go with the Sovereign for sure. I don't feel like bad using the Sovereign. I don't feel like I'm at a disadvantage at all. But when weapon bunkers open up and, you know, I have the choice of like a blue of each and I'm able to, you know, put drum mag on my Gatekeeper, then that's a point where I would be more inclined to use the Gatekeeper. So I feel like most of the time at this point, I'm just using the Sovereign unless I have access to a decent rarity Gatekeeper with drum mag. And a lot of times that's going to happen at the weapon bunkers. So I'll like use the Sovereign until bunkers open, and then maybe from there use the Gatekeeper if I do find one in the bunker that's good. But if we're just looking at the 3-round Gatekeeper, I probably would rather just have the Sovereign than have that. And it's like I said already, it's not like the Sovereign is bad and the jetpack was the only thing making it usable for me. I like the shotgun, it feels decent to use, but I think without the jetpack, the Gatekeeper probably is a better option if you're able to get a decent one with the drum mag attachment. So I feel like your weapons are really up to you. Like I said, both ARs are really viable. It's just preference. And then both shotguns, I think, are also just preference. For your mobility, it's also going to come down to preference, and I think there's a lot of options. I think the most important is going to be shockwaves, regardless of which mobility items you choose to carry. And I do recommend using double mobility. I think it's quite good. So I'm going to carry 2 mobility items, but one of them is always going to be shockwaves. I feel like shockwaves are just an incredible mobility item. Really, the only downside to them is that they're consumable and that you have to find more for each that you use. You know, if you only find 2 shockwaves, then it's really hard to do anything with them, you know. But if you end up finding a lot during the course of the game, then you can kind of use them freely and not worry about it that much. But either way, this just allows you to push people really well, allows you to get away from people really well. It allows you to, you know, go through cover, go through buildings. There's just so many different plays you can make with the shockwaves. And also it's an item that doesn't really have a cooldown, doesn't matter what your sprint is, and it doesn't get affected by other people damaging you in any way. And a lot of the other items kind of have that potential downside. So I think shockwaves are just a guarantee for me. I always want to carry them. For my second mobility item, it's going to typically be between the Shuri Claws or the Witch's Broom. I'm kind of leaning more towards the Witch's Broom recently. However, it's not a really easy item to find for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just me, but I rarely see this item. I know there's NPCs where you can buy it, but even landing Grand Glacier, at times there will be people that just buy it and leave immediately when the game starts. So like, I would like Shockwaves and Witch's Broom, but I feel like I often end up using Shockwave's Shuri Claws just because the Shuri Claws seem to be more easily findable for me. But either way, the Shuri Claws are also quite good. It gives you better sprint speed. You can pop the ultimate for unlimited stamina, and I would recommend taking advantage of that ultimate and charging that ultimate as much as you can. The charge for it is sped up if you sprint with the claws equipped. So if you sprint with the claws equipped, you do sprint faster, and that also charges the activated ability, and then the activated ability does give you unlimited stamina for a period of time. And if you're able to, you know, have that activated ability ready to go in like a bad situation that you need to respond to, or maybe you hear some people fighting and you want to third party it, you pop that activated ability and you go there. The Witch's Broom, I think I prefer, just because it's one activation button. You just tap the button and you're out of there. And then also it doesn't use stamina or anything like that. I feel like a lot of times when I'm using the claws, if I don't have a car yet, I'm just permanently no stamina, and that doesn't feel great. And then the other mobility items that I don't really prefer that much are going to be the chainsaw and the Iron Man boots. The Iron Man boots, I don't like that somebody shooting you can just knock you out of it and put you in an animation where you're just like continuously getting beamed. And then the chainsaw is kind of a similar thing where it's a fine mobility item, but it's quite easy to shoot somebody using the chainsaw. And mobility items where your enemy has like kind of a say in whether or not you're using it, I'm just not the biggest fan of. And both of those kind of items kind of have that. The chainsaw doesn't stop you from using it if you get shot, but I just feel like it's easily counterable by anybody with decent aim. And then that kind of makes it a struggle to have confidence in when I'm in a fight. If I'm in a fight and it starts bad and I need to reset that fight, if I use Shockwaves or the Witch's Broom, or maybe even Shuri Claws, I feel decently confident in my ability to reset that fight. But with the chainsaw or the Iron Man boots, I just don't feel the same way. And then the same is true if I'm pushing somebody. If I want to push somebody and I shock onto them, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to get on them and they're not going to have much to be able to say about it. But the chainsaw, like, they can get decent damage on you before you even get to them. And then you probably don't even want to be on them at that point. So, like, I feel like the chainsaw isn't really that useful in fights versus decent opponents, and it's mainly kind of just a travel around the map mobility item. But even then, I don't want to just be traveling with something that's easy to get engaged on like that. And cars are also in the game, and I feel like cars are just better than the chainsaw. They go faster. They're mobile cover. It's harder to shoot people out of it than it is somebody on the chainsaw. So, like, for me, cars are better. If you're playing ranked and there's no cars in the game, I think the chainsaw is definitely a very viable item, and my opinion on that item would raise significantly in a version of the game that doesn't have cars. So if you're playing ranked, the chainsaw is good, but I would still like to have Shockwaves and the Witch's Broom if it is in there. I don't think I've played ranked since the Fortnitemares update. And then the final thing is just going to be your heals. I think, again, this is something that really just comes down to preference. Big Pots, Chug Splash, and Flowberry Fizz are all great options, and it really just depends on what you want to use or what you have access to. Most of the time, I just end up picking based on what I find. If I find one big pot and a full fizz, I'm probably just going to take the fizz. If I find 3 big pots and 2 splashes, I'm going to take the big pots. If I find a full stack of splashes, I'm probably going to take those. It really changes up game to game or moment to moment, just depending on what I have access to. But I think all of these items are quite good, and they each have kind of advantages and disadvantages over each other. And like I said, to me, it's really not a big deal one way or the other. It just comes down to preference and what I end up finding in the match. And so that is going to be my setup for the Fortnitemares update. Shockwaves, Witch's Broom, heals, an AR of your choice, and a shotgun of your choice. It's pretty simple, and I feel like the game is very well balanced at the moment, to the point where, like, there's so many different choices that you could run. Like I said, like the AR, it just comes down to you, and the shotgun, it comes down to you. And then even some of the mobility items, some people have, you know, higher or lower opinions on some of the different items than others, and like each of them are all like viable. It's not like you're just trolling if you take that, you know. So I feel like the game is actually in a decent spot where there's a lot of, you know, really viable items in the game, and I feel like vaulting the jetpack just made room for a lot of these other mobility items to shine, like the difference in AR and shotguns to not be as big of a deal. And then also certain playstyles like the Iron Man gloves, I feel like are not nearly as impactful without the person just being able to jetpack around constantly. So that's really nice. Another item that I feel like got a pseudo indirect buff with the jetpack being vaulted is going to be the Monarch pistol. I don't really like using this, but if you like it and you have good aim with it, you could maybe drop one of your mobility items for it. And I feel like the lack of jetpack being in the game and the fights being more grounded and not as chaotic definitely makes the Monarch pistol a better item than it was before. And it was already a very good item. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, interesting, remember to give it a like. Subscribe if you like some more. Comment down below what your favorite loadout is in the game right now. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.